Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for yet more dedicated legacy action. As we're doing Painter Servant decks this week, we are now on to Grixis Painter. This is a list that I got from a friend of mine on the Painter Discord who goes by the name of Inkwell. I've had some success with it at local tournaments, and we're just going to have a little look at what's going on here. So essentially what this deck does is it has two engines. It has the Goblin Welder engine and the Emery Lurker of the Lock engine. Both of these allow you to leverage your graveyard as a resource area. So then you can pull back your baubles for redraws, your Mox Opals for mana, and of course your combo and a little bit of graveyard disruption here too. So that's one of the angles the deck's trying to approach with. We also have the Urza Saga package because that's kind of the reason why Painter is such a good deck now, is because you have this Urza Saga, which is a great B plan that also find your combo. So we only have two grindstones in here because we have the ability to dig with them because we're a Brainstorm Ponder deck, so we only need two of these. And we also have the Saga still and the Emery. So we've got lots of ways of finding this. Then we've got a Baleful Strix, which is one of the better cards at the moment for going up the ground because it can block Murktide Regents quite handily, and also cantrip. So this usually gets a 2-for-1 because you're not going to play it into days. So they're either going to Force of Will it, or they're going to use a removal spell, or it's going to kill a guy, and which means you're going to get the card out of it basically. So this is a cheap 2-for-1 that's also an artifact, so you can do welder shenanigans with it. So I'm a big fan of this card. Where this build differs from others, though, that I think is important to note, is the Lion's Eye Diamond. Now, Lion's Eye Diamond used to be in a lot of Painter decks back in the day because it allowed you to have the 3 mana to activate the Grindstone. So you'd have this Lion's Eye Diamond, and it could massively speed up your clock, so you can kill people on turn 2. If you just go Grindstone, Painter, play the Lion's Eye Diamond, bam, they're dead. Also, it has some synergies with things like Goblin Welder and Emery Lurker of the Lock, but a lot of Painter decks these days have gotten rid of the Lion's Eye Diamond because they're not trying to turbo out as much. So I'm curious to see how it plays in this one. We have the Nile Spellbomb instead of the Soul Guide Lantern, basically because it's pretty much the same if you've got black mana, because you get to exile the graveyard and draw a card, so it's not an either or type thing, but you can always just sack it to exile it. So this is just better in one of these lists where you've got black mana. We've got a few artifact lands, but only 3, so that's less than the mono white, the blue, and the red decks are playing, which hopefully means we'll get caught out by a little bit less often than we have done in some of the previous leagues. And we have obviously Pyroblast because we've got this slightly red shell here, and because we're naming blue, we get to make our Force of Wills better. Without the Painter, we don't have the most amount of cards for Force of Wills. We've got 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So normally 16 is the very bare minimum that you would want on Force of Will, but I'd normally want more than that. So I'm not sure how good these Force of Wills are going to be without Painter's Servant, but that's something we can find out and maybe tweak the numbers a little bit for the future, but it should be quite a good fun on this. Sideboard wise, we've got a bit more graveyard hate. We've got this Flusterstorm, which is going to be pretty potent at keeping us alive against some of these unfair decks. And obviously when we're boarding in things like this, we're upping our blue count, which is helpful. Spellscout, which is a card that I love a great deal, that I don't think gets enough play. It can really just save your... So some of the decks you're going to be playing against, the way they're going to interact with your combo is going to be removal. Spellscout can soak that up. So that's really nice. Something else I should also add that it does is it can redirect Presage you because it's abilities as well as spells. So that's quite an important one to note. Some more graveyard hate. Pyroblast, because there's a lot of good red decks around at the moment as well, and obviously we are playing a Painter deck, and we might be in a situation where we don't actually want to name blue with our Painter, so we can always name red with it. Then this is an interesting one to me, Mana Maze. Players can't cast spells that share a colour with the spell most recently cast this turn. So what this does is it means if you have a Painter's Servant in play and you cast a Pyroblast in your opponent's upkeep, they can't respond to the Pyroblast and they can't cast any more spells for the rest of that turn, which is quite a spicy one. And it also, like, you know, it's going to cause some Storm decks and Reanimator decks a bit of trouble to weave through it, and Control decks can't then like ponder Brainstorm into the thing they're going to get you with, and so on and so forth. So it's quite an interesting one, this one. I'm not entirely sure how good it is, but I'm fascinated to try it. Abrade, this is doing 2 things in the sideboard. Sometimes you need to kill creatures, sometimes you need to kill artifacts. Simple as. Colligan's Command, pretty similar sort of deal here. And then we have Maddening Hex, which Was a Nettle Cyst in the list I was given, but I spoke to Inkwell about it, and we decided to put in a Maddening Hex. So this is a win condition that isn't an artifact that we can board in for some matchups, and it also helps against things like control and so on and so forth, where we can just have a thing in play that they might not be able to deal with. Now, Force of Vigor decks, sure, but this isn't really coming in against the Force of Vigor decks. It's coming in against the sort of control-y decks that won't have a clean way to destroy artifacts outside of Prismatic Ending, which hopefully we can snag with some sort of counterspell. So the idea is that the things they bring in to hit our artifacts don't hit the Maddening Hex. That's about it. So this is the deck list, and I don't think I've got anything more to say about it. I've been rambling for a little while, so let's just jump into a league and see how we go. I've not played this deck before, so it'll be exciting to see. But just before we do that, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just scroll down and hit me the subscribe button, that would really help me out. It doesn't cost you a penny, but it's the best way that you can support my content. All right, let's go to a league. All right, so we are on the play for the first game. This is our opening hand. It has Island Ponder, which feels like a great way to start any game of Magic the Gathering, so I'm going to keep this hand. Now, the one issue with this is that we do have these 2 Mox Opals, but I think we just want to get an island so we're safe from Wastelands. So we'll cast this Ponder. We're looking for some of our action pieces. I don't really think this goes anywhere, so we're going to put these back on any order and shuffle, I think. We're really looking for a fetch land so we can fix our hand a little bit better. See the sign on. That is not the one. So we could play out the Mox Opal here, but I don't want our opponent to have any idea what we're doing. And the less cards we have in hand, the less likely they think it will be for us to have a Force of Will. So our opponent could play around Force of Will and Daze here. That's the hope, at least. So if this is a prison deck, we could be in a little spot of trouble. Okay. Lila the Reforged. So this is a card that grows every turn and draws you cards, basically. Elvish Spirit Guide. That's not one I was expecting to see. Alright. So we can Paint a Servant Red Blast this turn, because this will be 1 artifact, 2 artifact, 3 artifact. So I don't hate that. Now we're in blue. Cast this. So we could get greedy and Brainstorm first and then play another Mox Opal here. The only issue with that line is one of the cards we want to put back with our Brainstorm is the Mox Opal. So turning it into a Lotus Petal here to cast a Brainstorm doesn't actually seem that good to me. It's only you may play it this turn. So what we could do is we could Pyroblast their City of Traitors here, but I think the bigger threat is just this guy that's going to beat us down. But we want to see if our opponent plays anything, because this deck often plays before combat because of it's got so many haste creatures. Okay, so it's not doing that. So I think we just fire this off now. We can't let our opponent just keep digging into their deck. We got another one to follow up with. Okay, so they can play a 4-drop this turn. What 4-drop would they play? Minsk and Boo. That's a pretty good one, but it was a post-combat Minsk and Boo. Alright, still gets the guy bigger, but it doesn't mean they get to attack this turn. We could do with drawing another Pyroblast type effect. Or we can draw a Grindstone here. Let's Brainstorm. Interesting. I don't think we need a Lion's Eye Diamond right now, and this Mox Opal was pretty bad. Let's put those 2 back. I would quite like to shuffle, which means we can't get the Urza Saga down. But we can get the Emery down, and the Baleful Strix. Alright, let's crank this. So I think we probably just get the Badlands here to give us both of our colours. Like, we do have the Mox Opal, but that is a little bit fragile. So then we cast this. So black, blue. So we're ideally looking for some sort of Pyroblast type effect here. A Goblin Welder. Is that better than Emery? I don't think it is. I think we need to cast the Emery and get into our deck to try and find a Grindstone here. We did not find a Grindstone. We did not find anything at all to go with the Emery, which is not great. So we are behind, I think, now, because Minsk and Boo is a very powerful card, and they can use it to blast our Painted Servant away, which means we're going to be further away from the combo. Sure. So they're just instantly nuking the Painter. I thought that might happen, but we get it back with Emery next turn, So that's fine. They should really be hitting the Emery and then trying to hit the Painted Servant. Are they going to play some sort of guy to stand in the way? Okay, they've got Fury as well, so they get to have it all. Yep, this is pretty bad for us. So we don't get our Painted Servant back, but we do get to play an Urza's Saga. They got another threat as well. A Chalice of the Void for 1, so that's going to shut off a lot of our deck. But we have a Goblin Welder. If we can put another artifact in their graveyard, we can welder that away. Well, we can't know because we've got to cast it through it. So we are now in the play Urza's Saga, hope for the best stage of the game, which is not great. Post-board, this matchup's going to be worse because they're going to have Fiery Confluence, which can just blow up our whole board. So this Minsc and Boo is just going to beat us. So I could have saved my Pyroblast for their end of turn, but that gives them another card when I kill the Layla. So it's a tricky one. At least we know what the green's for in our opponent's deck, I suppose. We can just play out both Urza's Sagas here, right? We'll need another mana source for the next one. Caves of Chaos Adventure. Okay, so we are dead on the next turn. Our opponent looks like they are having a jolly good time over there. Okay, so our turn we've drawn a useless Goblin Welder. We can play an Urza's Saga. We can make a Saga Construct. And hope that it can do enough. It can block 5 damage in theory. So this is the one that pumped the guy. So they're probably going to pump their Trampler. They both have Trample, of course. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. So this isn't lethal unless they use their Minsc and Boo to pump. Yeah, so now we are dead. We have to concede. Okay, that was a bit of a thorough smashing purely off of the back of Minsc and Boo, because that card is not very friendly. Let's zoom in this a little bit. Okay, so a Braid is going to be good against some of the things they're trying to accomplish. The Hydroblast Sphere are going to be excellent because the threats that we care about are that colour. Spellskite could be useful here. Colligan's Command could be useful here. So what in our main deck? The Null Spell Bomb isn't going to do anything for us. I think we have to keep the Force of Wills in. The Pyroblasts can go. We're replacing them with Blue Blasts, which is just going to be better most of the time. Pithaniel is going to be excellent. And then we got one more Trim here. Tricky to work this one out. I don't think we want the Spellskite. Although maybe we do. So we do want the Spellskite. That gives us 2 things to trim. We can maybe cut back on some of our 1-drops purely for the purposes of getting around Chalice. So we can... I don't want to bin off any blue spells if I can help it. So we can trim a Welder here. And then we're left trying to get rid of 1 more. So the Baleful Strix seems like it's not actually going to be that good in this matchup. But it does draw cards. And it is blue. We could just be getting rid of one of our artifact manas here. I'm not sure we're going to have a lot. So we don't want to get 2 of these in our hand because that forces us to need a Brainstorm. So I think we can trim one of those. If we scooch those out, we're looking at 60 cards. I don't think Mana Maze is going to be the one here. So I think we just submit like this. Okay, so this hand has a redraw and not a lot else going on. So I don't think we can keep this. This hand is pretty awkward. We have a redraw from the Baleful Strix, but that means our Urza's Saga won't do anything until turn 4. And we're basically just relying on the Strix. I think we have to mulligan this as well. This hand is better. I think we can keep this one. Like, we have the Forcible blue cards. So we need to put 2 cards away. So I think we get rid of the Welder because the Emery is going to be doing the work for us here. And then we play out this Polluted Delta and we hold it. And if they Chalice of the Void, we will cast a Brainstorm. If we do nothing, we do not need to do that. Urza's Saga. This is fine. We haven't got a fetch land to go with our Brainstorm yet. So I'm not the most excited about cracking this off. Let's see what our opponent does. Magus of the Moon. Considering what's in our hand, I think we have to do something about it. So let's go and get a basic island first. And then we'll cast this Brainstorm. So we have a Grindstone and a Welder. Which of these are we going to most want to... do we least want to have in our hand? Well, Goblin Welder we don't have the mana for. So that seems pretty bad. And we just draw the Grindstone next turn. Which means we need to counter this spell, otherwise we lose the game, I think. So, what are we getting rid of here? So Emery is going to cost us 3 mana here. I think we have to get rid of Baleful Strix because we can't cast it. Yeah, this hand isn't panning out amazingly, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So we're not going to be able to do anything with our Ezra's Saga this turn. And we don't really want to Brainstorm. We get to see 2 new cards if we cast a Brainstorm here. And I think we're so desperate for land we have to do that. Yikes, we are in real trouble here. So these two on top, I think. So we can cast this, and we can play out the Grindstone. And then I think we hold the Bauble to make our Emery cheaper. The only issue with that is we're going to be seeing these rubbish cards on the top of our deck for a bit longer. Minskamboo, I don't know if we can... Oh, we've got the Hydroblast on top, actually, so we can deal with this guy. And then get an engine online. So we're going to take 4 this turn, and they're going to have a 4 power guy for a while. Not a particular fan of Minskamboo existing in the format, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, okay, so we tap this for mana. And this goes and gets us a Mox Opal. And this should cost 1 blue mana. I should probably tap it with this. Let's see what it finds us. A Mishra's Bauble amongst those pieces. Interesting. So, I think we have to destroy target red permanent. And then we'll see what our opponent's got on top of the library. At least it wasn't another Minskamboo, I suppose. Now we don't have anything to do with that 1 mana, so... We haven't got a lot of turns. We've got like 4 turns to deal with what our opponent's put down here. This is like another Minskamboo. No, a Punishing Fire. Sure. And okay is a Chaos Adventure. I feel like I'm just constantly behind in this matchup. A lot of what our opponent has is a make or break card. And we don't have a lot of removal outside of the blasts. Let's see what we have here. So that's bad. Let's give this a whirl. So we can take the Brainstorm, but we can't cast it because we don't have enough artifacts anymore. We can take the Strix we can't cast, we can take the land. I think we have to shuffle here. I think we are just stone cold dead here. I guess we get 1 more turn where if we draw Painted Servant we can win the game, I think. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh no, they're just going to put 2 counters on their guy and kill us. Alright, we are just dead. Sure. That was a pretty poor showing, I think. We did mulligan at the start, but I feel a lot of our hands didn't really go anywhere, so we had to mulligan. Alright, we're going to try another round. Let's see how we go. We're into game 2, and we are on the play. What does this hand do? We have a spare... Like... This hand is going to be relying on Brainstorm to do a lot of work for us. If this is a Ponder, I'd feel a bit happier. We do have our colours, which is something I'm interested in. I'm going to keep this to see how it goes. I'm keeping it for science here. Like normally I don't keep decks that don't keep hands that don't have a plan. So our plan here is Brainstorm, which isn't the best plan on its own. But I'm going to keep it and see if this can dig us out, because we have tools here. Now the issue is, we only have 1 blue card here. So if we have to burn our Force of Will on turn 1, that's going to be really bad for us. We could try and Brainstorm into a blue card, but the blue count in this deck is quite low, so I don't think that's a realistic play. But if we have to do it, if we have to use the Force of Will, then that's just how it is. So an Entomb, Faith is Looting. I think we can let this one go. Now the issue is our opponent can then just unmask us and hit us with something. Entomb is the one that I'm more inclined to hit. Okay, so I have a Shouldered. So that's not quite what I was expecting. I was expecting one of the big ones. So now we have the Unmask. So I think we fire off the Brainstorm in response to this. Where does this hand go? So we get to shuffle one of these away with an Emery. Or we can keep the Force of Will in hand. I don't think we're going to be doing much with Pyroblast, so that's the one we're going to shuffle away. And what would we like to protect here? I think we have to protect the Emery because our deck doesn't really do anything without it. So I think we do it like this. They're going to take the Force of Will probably here. The hope is they don't have Lotus Petal reanimate. But at least it's just a Shouldered rather than any of the really, really scary things like Quizzlebrand. I think we just Stone Cold lose to Quizzlebrand if it comes into play now. Okay, so I took the Lion's Eye Diamond, which I suppose represents the most broken stuff I can do. I could, if I have a Painted Servant on top of my deck, I could win next turn. Because I could play out this and the Mox Opal, play a Painter, play the Grindstone, play an LED, kill them. So I think that's probably the line they took there. Which means we get to keep the Force of Will. Although, not that's going to do us any good because we need to play out these cards, really. This should cost 1 blue. So let's just play this guy out. Get rid of that Pyroblast we don't want on top of our deck right now. Going well, so we can bring back the Lion's Eye Diamond. What can we do here? So our opponent knows all the cards in our hand. So there's no point keeping hold of them here. So what we need to do is decide if there's a Pithing Needle target that we want. So we could get the... We could try and hit their Bloodstained Mines. They've already used 2 of them. I think we just play out the Grindstone here. So next turn is easier if we draw the Painted Servant. I don't think there's anything we can name with Pithing Needle. Oh, of course there is. Grizzlebrand. What am I talking about? Grizzlebrand. There we go. My brain got there in the end. Sorry, it's first thing in the morning. I normally do late night leagues. But they had the maintenance last night, so I couldn't do my league normal time. But we got there in the end, so there's that. Okay, our opponents played out second Badlands. They do not appear to be doing anything with that. Oh, they can wait till second. End of combat is an interesting time to do that. So entombing, what is this going to be? Probably Summer's Emissary, naming artifact, Archon of Cruelty. They're not bringing it back though. So we have another Grindstone. Interesting. Let's just get our resources back. Just cast this Lion's Eye Diamond. We don't have a way that we can use this mana to cast our Force of Will. And they know we have a Force of Will in hand, so I'd rather not play out the Grindstone and just hold up the Force of Will blue card bluff. So our opponent's looking for a reanimation spell, I think, now. Polluted Delta. Grief. Sure. They're going to know the coast is clear here. There's nothing we can really do about this because our Force of Will isn't online. Taking the Force of Will. The Archon of Cruelty will kill our Emery. We get a Goblin Welder here. Would we rather have a Welder or an Emery? That's an interesting one. What would I rather have here? So the Emery is better with any of the Bauble effects. So I think it should be the Emery that stays, right? Let me just sack off the Welder here. And we'll lose this card in hand. Okay, so we have drawn it, which is why I like playing combo decks, because sometimes you just draw the win. We will name blue. Okay, they know what's about to happen. Excellent, so we go to sideboarding. So they are a reanimated deck with Shouldered, which is interesting. So Tormod's Crypt and Grafdigger's Cage seem like pretty obvious ones. They're going to be a Serenity deck, which is something we have to worry about. Flusterstorms can also interact with our opponent here, as can the Cellular Extraction. We can't really get around our opponent having the Serenity. We can get around Wear Tear with Spellskite. We didn't see any white mana, but we saw a lot of fetches, so it's certainly possible. So we don't really want to have these Pyroblasts. Our cards have to do something the turn that we have them. So I don't know if we're going to have enough time to leverage Pyroblast in this matchup. The Welder does help with some of the more explosive draws. But I don't want to remove any blue cards because I need to have my Force of Wills online. There is an option for having Hydroblast because it hits Wear Tear, and it also hits the Faithless Looting. But I'm not really sure that's good enough. Mana Maze stops them doing Dark Ritual lines. But I think the choice of having Mana Maze or any of these cards is tricky. Because the Baleful Strix, I guess, is quite slow. But by the time Mana Maze comes online, our opponent will have already done their Dark Ritual line if they have one. So I don't think this is where I want that matchup-wise. I think we're going to submit like this, just boarding a load of Graveyard Hate and Counter Magic, like that. I think that'll do. We don't want to call against Command either. Manning Hex is interesting here. Gives us a way of winning through a Serenity, perhaps. We can have one of these, and I don't really want to trim a blue card is the problem. I think it has to be a Welder here. Just so we can keep our blue count and combo cards high. We need to have enough combo pieces that we can draw into them. So this opening hand has no mana sources, so we're going to mulligan it. This opening hand has a Flusterstorm that we're probably not going to get to cast, but it has a Brainstorm Time, we dig for answers, and a Baleful Strix, which can at least keep the Grizzlebrand back. I think we can keep this. And we probably put back the... I think we put back the Mox Opal here, right? We don't really have the sort of draw that cares about Mox Opals. So how much damage can they do to us on turn 1? Thoughtseize. Sure, so we're going to probably lose our Flusterstorm, but they could take our Brainstorm because they see our hand doesn't do anything on its own. It needs a bit of help. Sure, I took the Flusterstorm. They have a Ledger's Petal to follow up with. They need a very specific set of cards to generate a big fatty this turn. Okay, they've got an Unmask as well, so we're losing the Brainstorm here. Sure. So we are living off the top of our deck now. That's a pretty good one. I'm going to play the Volcanic Island out first because they don't have any ways to disrupt our mana base as a general rule. So none of these cards really help us out at this spot. So I think we have to go any order and shuffle. I could have kept one on top to try and bluff the Force of Will, because that's one of the things I would keep off of Ponder. But I think it's better to just have cards that do something. And if I can't really go for that pile of 2 mana sources and a Grindstone, because that's not enough action. Archon of Cruelty in their graveyard. Sure, so this is the turn we get to make a Baleful Strix and hopefully draw round C, isn't it? And we want to ideally draw a Surgical Extraction here. We drew another mana source. Alright. I think our opponent will just go for it if they have it as well. Exhume. Sure, so we're going to lose a lot of our stuff. Lose this, lose one of these fetches. So we are in trouble, I would say, here. We get to cast this. The only problem is this one will die when they attack. So I can't actually block with it. The Strix isn't looking great here. We have a Saga. We can play out our Saga. We don't have enough turns for this to tick down, is the issue. So we basically need a Brainstorm so we can fix our hand. Okay, so they might be doubling up and getting something super scary. So they've got an Ashen Rider here. If we've got the reanimation, then we're in real trouble. Get rid of this and this. So we've just drawn an awful lot of mana sources this game. I think we're in a bit of a spot here. Dark Ritual. So they're probably getting the Ashen Rider back, which is going to... They might use it to blow up our Saga, but I don't think that's right. I think you want to blow up one of our coloured sources, considering they don't know our hand. Obviously, I know that's not a good play, but it stops the amount of cantrips we can use. So let's see what they target here. Okay, I think that's a mistake, personally. I think you have to shut off cantrips from your opponent who's massively behind. Not the thing that's going to not do anything by the time they get to attack. Kabar Therapy. Sure, you can have a look. It's not very exciting, I'm afraid. Yes, they could have taken enough off of 2 blue sources. So name Painter 7. So Brainstorm is one of the cards that we've actually been looking for. But I think it's too late at this point. If this had come a turn earlier, it might have been okay. Obviously, it depends what top of our deck is. Oh, lordy. I think I have to put these 2 back this turn. Get this out. And all these. I don't know what we're looking to draw here, to be honest. I don't think it makes a difference. So we'll go to game 3. So on the play, because we got game 1, we're in a slightly better spot now. Is there anything else that we could want from this? I don't think there's anything else here. Manning Hex looks less good than it did because I'm not really seeing the Serenity type stuff coming from their deck. So I think we're going to submit with the additional Welder so we can have more broken lines like Diamond Starts and reuse some Graveyard Hate a bit. So this opening hand doesn't interact with our opponents, so we have to mulligan it. This opening hand has a counter spell, so we can keep it. We have a redundant Emery that we can... No. We need this... Oh, do we need this for the blue card? Or are we going to be pitching a Baleful Strix? Interesting. I suppose we can use the second Emery to dig, whereas we can't use... It will dig us 4 cards, whereas the Baleful Strix will give us +1 card in total, but won't give us more. This is actually a tricky decision. I think we pitch the Baleful Strix. And we play the Seat of the Synod so we can make a turn 2 Emery. Depends what we're pitching with the Force of Will. Our opponent probably has a turn 1 play because... Okay, so we have a Grief here. So the Grief is going to hit our Force of Will, but I don't think it's worth pitching the Force of Will to save it. We don't want to just him to Turak ourselves. So yeah, I think we are going to get rolled in this game. We could have played the Saga on turn 1 and hope that it ticks up in time to get us a graveyard hit piece, but I think the speed of the reanimated decks is so fast that that's not really a winning proposition in my opinion. Interesting, they didn't actually have a follow-up play. So we can play out the Baleful Strix here, but I think we need to get the Emery on board. The Baleful Strix can find us a Force of Will, which is the one reason it might have been slightly better here. But I think we need to get the Heirs of Saga online and we need to try and win this game. Okay, so the Painted Servants, that's half of the combo, and the other half is the Heirs of Saga in play. So that's good. Entomb. Yeah, so they're probably going to get gone for the Grizzlebrand. Usually a pretty good idea. Exhume. Animate Dead. Sure. So I don't get my painter back, which is a shame. So they're going to draw 7 cards here. They can attack our hand, but our hand isn't what's going to win us the game here. The thing is, they can play more threats, which is the thing that's actually going to kill us here. Sure, you can take some cards from us. We can always play the Baleful Strix from our graveyard with Emery just to block with, which can stop the Grizzlebrand coming in. But they've drawn so many cards, I don't think that's going to be a thing they care about. And they can probably just attack and then reanimate it again. So I think our best bet is just to try and get the win sewn up for next turn. If our opponent doesn't have the threats, then we'll be okay. Okay, they're going to deploy another creature. So the Archon of Cruelty is going to be the issue here because that's going to be the thing that interacts with our board. So they could also get Summer's Emissary, which is something we will struggle to answer unless we draw a Hydroblast. Archon of Cruelty. They got 2 mana floating still. Okay, so we're losing everything. Yep. This game is over. We do technically get another draw step, but I think we're just going to get absolutely smashed out here. Pithing Needle. So this stops the Grizzlebrand from gaining them life, but we're still going to take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I think there's no reason not to cast this. But what can we even draw here? No, I don't think there's anything that saves us here. I think we should just concede. Alright, so that was not great. So the first game we had a nice little quick combo that we managed to get through their guys. But I think what they're doing is just intrinsically more powerful. And if we don't have the ability to stop it, then that's it for us. So we went to, I think we went to 6 on that one. So we could go to 5, but all of our, so we'd have to have one of the artifacts is the only way that we can get around this. So we're trying to draw into a 3 of in our deck. Now, maybe it's right to just to mulligan super hard for that, but then these decks can play Show and Tell and just ignore that. And we've also seen the Shouldred, which they can just ramp out with a Dark Ritual. So I'm not really sure how we counteract this matchup that effectively. I think things like Ley Lines are just the way to go if you want to beat these decks. It at least buys you 2 turns. Whereas having a Force of Will or a Surging Extraction might not do anything because they have so many discard outlets. Anyway, let's go into round 3. Okay, so we're on the play for round 3. Not that it's been doing us much good lately, but this is our opening hand. It's a little bit all in, isn't it? I have to play this Welder and then hope that I can draw another mana source. I only really get 1 draw step to do that. And if we fetch a Volcanic so that we're live for Brainstorm draws, then we can't actually... If we play the Welder off of a Volcanic, then we're just 1 wasteland away from dying. So I think we have to mulligan this one for a second mana source. Okay, this hand has similar problems, but we have a Ponder. and we have a Mistress Bauble. So we can keep this. We can bin off one of the welders. We could say sorted here. So this has to play the Ponder this turn to make sure we hit our next mana source. Okay, none of those are a mana source, so I think we have to go any order. Okay, that's also not a mana source. We do have Force of Will to keep us in this game, if that's something we need. It will pitch one of our business spells though. Underground Sea. This is usually a card reserved for broken combo decks. So it could be Doomsday, could be Adultive Tendrils, could be the Epic Storm. It could also just be something like 60 card Cephalid Breakfast or Espervile. So there's quite a lot of options this can be, but I'm going to err on the side of them being a combo deck. See if we get some more information. An Underground Sea, that doesn't really tell us what we want there. So they did not shuffle their library either. So they wanted that Underground Sea. Let's get 2 cards this turn. Okay, so we have a Ponder. So we can play out the Ponder to try and hit a source that can cast these spells. I think this is an awkward one here. I think we do need to cast the Ponder. A shame. I'd like to hold up the Red Blast against that opponent. But... okay, so if we wanted mana sources, we've got mana sources. I don't think we want all of these, but I will take the Island, and I'll probably take the second Saga, and then try and Emery the rest away. Oh, I clicked shuffle button. What am I doing? So we play out the Saga here. I've misclicked there. That's not ideal at all. I was a pretty marginal keep from the Ponder though, but that doesn't mean I just throw my plan away there. Right, so we have the Force of Will, which might have to pitch the Emery anyway, but we can also pitch the Baleful Strix, which is most likely going to be better. But now we are hoping there's a land on top of our library. Dragon's Rage Channeler. That's not the one I expected. So they're like, there could be that Tempo Doomsday build that I've seen. How do we feel about Dragon's Rage Channeler? This card is incredibly strong and is going to let them see many cards. But I think we can probably race it if we can get our combo up and running. We can't Pyroblast this, unfortunately. But we get to bring in our Hydroblast in the second game. Mistress Bauble. So we're going to see a lot of cards. He's got 3 different things with Delirium. An instant will give it Delirium. So the chance of them being able to switch it on are very high. Okay, so we drew a land, so actually we lucked out from that Ponder bit there. So we have choices here. We're definitely playing this. The question is, if we play out the Baleful Strix this turn, we don't have the ability to Pyroblast something. If we play out the Emery, so we can play out the Emery and have a Force of Will via Baleful Strix. Or we can hold up the Force of Will and make an Urza's Saga token. Or we can play a Welder and hold up Pyroblast. I don't think the Welder line is what we want. I think the scariest thing we can do from our opponent's perspective here is play out the Baleful Strix. So I think we get the bad lands here, because that gives us the ability to cast Welder and Pyroblast next turn if we want to. Let's go for black, and we go for blue. We cast this. So they can't daze it because we have the Saga. And the Saga can go and get us a Nile Spellbomb to remove Murktide as a threat next turn. Okay. So we've got 2 for 1 here. Okay, this is a great card. We want to follow up with just more of these. Obviously, if they are pivoting into a Doomsday combo, we do have the Force of Will protection. I'm actually inclined to pitch the Emery rather than the Baleful Strix, unless we see more of their deck that makes me think the Emery is going to be better. I think having guys that trade with all of their threats is important. The Channeler, sure. We have a follow-up Strix for this. Hymn to Turak. Would I rather discard 2 random cards or Force of Will and Emery? That is a tricky decision, actually, because I kind of want to keep Welder and Baleful Strix, right? And then we can just weld this and have a good time. But if our opponent has a Force of Will, then we're going to lose these, and we're definitely going to lose one of these 2. So this is a tricky one. I think we actually have to let this go, right? If we lose Welder and Strix, it's very unfortunate. But if we keep one of them, I think that's fine. Like, if they Force of Will, we just have nothing going on, and they've just got these big... Like, obviously, we're going to now Spellbomb them, but I feel we should just let this go. This could be an error, but let's see. Okay, so we kept the 2 cards we wanted. So that worked out far better than trying to play through. The fact they're offering this trade is interesting to me. I think because they know the graveyard hit is coming. But this gets rid of their selection as well. So, alright. So we're playing around Daze and Force of Will on our turn. So a blue spell could be useful here to help us defend. Pyroblast. What do we do here? I think we add... do we add mana here? If we make a token, what is that token going to achieve for us? I don't think it's actually going to achieve that much, but if we add mana, that's not doing anything either. So, if it's going to be a grindy game, we're going to need to... I think we make a token here. And then we go and get this Gnarl Spellbomb. We don't get the black mana to really get them with it, but I think we have to do it now so that they can't untap into Murktide. We do not have the mana to pay for this. It's unfortunate that our construct is a 1-1, but it might be able to trade with their Dragon's Channel this turn. Feels quite difficult to get the value out of the Urza Saga sometimes with the selection of spells I have and the mana. Oh, Expressive Iteration is a pretty gross one for our opponent to have here. So might be able to just get the Delirium on this turn. Like we could Force of Will this, but I don't think it's... I think we have to Force of Will the things that beat us. If I had a Pyroblast up, I would definitely Pyroblast this. But I don't think it's a Force of Willable target at this point. I could be wrong though. Okay, so there, Scalding Tarn. A Baleful Strix. Okay, yeah, so this definitely looks like the Tempo Doomsday build. So they're not going to attack into us. This also makes... This is an artifact creature, which is pretty good with the old... A Brainstorm. Okay. So we can Brainstorm to try and find a land here. But we still have a Pyroblast in our back pocket. So I think this is fine. Ideally, a land... It's not quite the land we wanted, is it? So these sagas feel really awkward with Baleful Strix, if I'm being... So we can Pyroblast, but I also want to cast the Welder this turn. So if we are casting the Welder, what are we doing with the rest of our mana this turn? Or we can take this and play the Strix out. I don't hate that as a play. We can keep the Brainstorm for a blue card. Which means I think we put... Is it Welder or Pyroblast? Then Urza Saga. I guess when we... Urza Saga doesn't actually do anything for us, really, right now. So I think this has to be the bottom card. And then it doesn't really matter which one of these because we're not casting either of them, I don't think. Yeah, so we're not casting either of them this turn, so we'll just put that one back. We'll play this out. And we'll go for black, blue, and try this. So this can get hit by a Daze this turn, which is the only issue. Which would be pretty bad for us. I don't know if it's worth Force of Willing this to force it through. Okay, it just went through. Okay, that's good. That gives me the impression that our opponent is playing... might have a Doomsday and they want to keep their Force of Will or their counter magic to protect it, perhaps. So Doomsday with 5 cards in hand is usually a win on the same turn. Now I might have just misread this wrong. It might just be like a Grixis tempo deck. So you want to hit my Baleful Strix with an Unholy Heat. That's fine. That's got its 2 for 1. The clock they're representing isn't a particularly large one. So we can get the Welder out and start bringing back Baleful Strixes by sacrificing our Construct token. And we have a Pyroblast to sort of keep ourselves alive as well as this Force of Will. Another Channeler is a little bit annoying. As soon as we kill one of their creatures, they're going to be... So you've got sorcery, instant, land. So if one of their creatures dies, they're going to be bigger lads. Which isn't really what we want. Murktide Regent. So we can Pyroblast this on our turn. So I'm happy to let them exile their graveyard and shrink their Dragon's Rage Channelers. And then try and Pyroblast it with Force of Will protection. I actually don't want to sacrifice my Construct token here just to save 1 damage. I think I would rather just keep this to Welder away on the following turn. So we have this Saga that's not particularly exciting, but we can play it out and it helps us play around a Daze. So we use this for red. Let's destroy target opponent if it's blue. We will force of will this if they have. Okay, excellent. So then we can that is welder. And then from next turn we get to make tokens and start weldering, and we have a force of will protecting us. So I don't even think this is the Doomsday build. I think this is just a straight up Grixis tempo deck. I just always assume the worst, and playing against Doomsday is so scary. Alright, so our opponent's got hardcast force of will available. So they should know they can attack with everything here. Unless, if they plan to have a removal spell, then they should just do that first and then attack anyway. Okay, sure. So this Saga ticks up. So we will make a Saga token. And then we will play out our other Saga. Then we'll go to attacks with our 2/2. I suspect they'll just take the damage here. And then we'll get our Baleful Strix back. We're doing this main phase in case we get in a situation where we draw something exactly like this. Okay, so we have both of our engines now. So if they're going to hardcast Force of Will, I don't even care, to be honest. I think this is fine. I'd rather save this for the thing that beats us. We are winning on board in a massive way here because we can now Spellbomb whenever we need to, and we've just got a chain of Baleful Strixes to just eat up all their Dragon's Rage channelers. So because we're winning on board, I don't think it's worth pitching a Force of Will to try and make our board better. I think it's the thing that makes our board worse or their board better is what we have to counter. So they do have 3/3s this turn, but the Baleful Strix can trade. And we've got so many artifacts. I think we're alright here. Unholy Heat. On the Baleful Strix. Really? That is an interesting one to me. So we could counterspell this. Because they're clearly just trying to push damage here. Is this worth counterspelling? We've only got one card in hand, so I think we will counterspell this one. Because I think the way we lose this game now is getting out-tempoed whilst we have our engine online. Okay, it looks like they're hard casting the Force of Will in their hand. Okay, so they are hellbent here. But they're going to have a lot of scry triggers. Let's see how many they have to go before they stop putting them on the bottom. Putting them in the graveyard. What this does is it resets the board pretty much. So they've got these guys, but we have the Welder engine plus 2 Sagas that are both active. So this seems good to me. We can always catch them out with bringing back the now Spellbomb at instant speed and cracking it and seeing if they fall for it. Which I quite like. Okay, let's put these on the stack. Then we will activate this one using this blue mana, and we'll save black mana because we're probably going to be cracking our Spellbomb soon. So what do we want to get here? If we get the Mox Opal, it gives us more. It gives us the mana to activate the Opal, activate the Saga here. So I think we need to get this. Play this out. I'm going to get an Underground Sea. We'll activate this now to give us another guy. We'll attack with this guy. So I think we go for the instant speed now Spellbomb and see if they fall for it. And then our constructs can just eat up their guys. Mishra's Bauble, sure. We have to now Spellbomb this turn, but I don't think we can afford to take 6 here. They're probably going to be a Lightning Bolt deck, so one of this and get now Spellbomb. That's what this, targeting them. Use the black in our pool, draw a card. Echo is exiled. We get a blocks, and we hopefully kill their guys. These have to attack, so there's not really much they can do to stop this play from happening. Unless they kill our Welder first, even then I can wait for them to attack. So the downside of Dragon's Rage Channeler actually being a downside for once. Okay, so we have a Force of Will here. They're doing this so they can see what the top card of our library is. Seat of the Synod. I think we make this still. Make a big lad. And this can get us a grindstone, so we're available to win with the combo. Or we can get a Mishra's Bauble, which just gives us another card. I haven't really seen our combo side. I think we just want more stuff like this, really. So if we play out this artifact. Oh, I just passed through my attack step there. I'm reluctant to attack into the Baleful Strix just yet, but maybe I should need to do it a bit quicker. Alright, so we can bring back... We can trade in our Seat of the Synod for a Baleful Strix this turn. But nice if we had some sort of removal spell that was an artifact as well. Another bauble. That's not a particularly exciting thing for our opponent to have. Okay, they're just scooping it up anyway. Oh dear. I seem to have a habit of doing misclicks that don't actually matter quite often, which is terrible. But there we go. Let's go on to the sideboard. Wow, that was a very long game. So we get these 3 Pyroblasts in. Sorry, Hydroblasts. That seems like a given. The Manning Hex looks like it's going to be good here. The Colligan's Command is going to be good here. The Spellskite might be okay. And the Abrades are going to be very good here. So we have a lot of cards that we want here. I don't think the Pithing Needle is going to do anything. We still want the Nile Spellbomb. I think we bored out the Force of Wills because I don't think they are a Doomsday deck and we don't want to have 2-for-1s in our deck. 2-for-1s against us, that is. I don't think we need to be a combo deck this game, so I don't think we can board out the Lionside Diamond. I think we can probably trim on some of our actual combo pieces as well. They don't know we have it, I don't think, because of what they saw. So maybe we can just trim out one of each. Only having one grindstone doesn't feel like a lot though. So maybe we'll trim out a Mox Opal. Have a look at this. How does this look? Yeah, that seems pretty good. We just need to get... So that was a game where we actually got our engines online. Of like our welder type stuff. Which we haven't managed to do in the other games yet. So I think you kind of need both of them to be an engine together, really, because this one puts the cards in and then Welder can start churning. And the Urza Saga looked very good then, whereas previously it looked like it's hampering our mana base. Alright, we're going to submit like this. Spellskite can protect our engine pieces, and it can also soak up sort of artifact hate and all sorts of things. This is an odd hand, isn't it? This has a turn 3 combo if I start out on Urza's Saga. I think we are going to keep this, because I haven't seen the combo side of our deck. And we have the Hydroblast for protection. It's a little bit risky. I'm not sure if I even want to play the Urza Saga on 1. I might just need to have the Hydroblast on 1. But if they play out a Dragon's Rage Channeler, we can't Hydroblast it because they're going to have a Daze. So we have to play the Urza Saga out and then play the play through the Daze with mana open next turn. That's the plan anyway. Does that change anything? I don't think so. So we could play an Emery out this turn if we... No, we have 1, 2... No, we still can't play an Emery out this turn if we do it the other way around. So we'll play this out. So our thing still isn't online. But next turn we can play out our Painted Servant and have a Hydroblast to protect it. Nile Spellbomb. That's fine by me. We are a graveyard deck, but we don't need the graveyard. We're probably less of a graveyard deck than our opponent is, to be honest. Because they kind of need cards in their graveyard to make their threats work, whereas we don't. Just go up to 2. I haven't seen Wastelands from them because they're 3 colours, so we're hoping that that's going to be the case. So we play this out. The Hydroblast doesn't counter spells here. So we'll play out this Painted Servant. If they don't have the counter spell, then we can win next turn. If they do have the counter spell, that's a bit of a shame. Oh wow, it did. Okay. So now we just sit here with a Hydroblast up that can hit anything. And next time what we do is we activate the Urza Saga for mana, and then we go and get another Mox Opal. So we activate this for mana and this. And then we go and get another Mox Opal. So we have 3 mana and the Hydroblast up to protect. That's the plan, at least. Underground Sea. So because our opponent didn't see like the combo half of our deck, we're getting a lot of extra value in this matchup that we might not have got. We just had a grindy artifact value deck last time. What is this? A Meltdown for 1. We can't allow this to resolve. Now they could have Force of Will here. They did not have Force of Will. Excellent. I'm trying to think what they can have for 0 mana here. If we draw a Pyroblast, we can change the way we're playing. So I think it is correct to activate this first. Activate this for blue or red. Yeah, we activate this for red. Then we. So basically, if they did have something at instant speed, I don't know what it could be. If they had something, then I could at least play the Welder and rebuild. So we managed to win that match. We sort of showcased both halves of the deck, the sort of the grindy value half and then the combo half. So, okay, that was all right. I think that's round 3, so we've got 2 more to go. So let's carry on. Okay, we won the die roll yet again. And our opening hand looks pretty good to me, I think. We have this Emery, we have this Ponder, we've got Brainstorm. We've got a lot of tools that we would like to work with, so we're going to keep. The question of what we play out first is the tricky one. So we can play out the Saga and just try and get the turn 3 combo. But I think we probably want to cast a Ponder. But if we want to cast a Ponder, what do we cast it off of? If we cast it off of this and it gets wastelanded, then we lose red mana. If we cast it off this, then we lose an artifact to count for our Emery. But we might be able to make a cheaper Emery if we use this. I think we'll start out with the Synod. I think we need to protect our red sources to cast our spells. Making our Emery more expensive down the line isn't the end of the world. Okay, so we would like to put the Force of Will into our hand. Do we want the mana source yet? I don't think we need the mana source just yet. I think we'd rather have the Ponder. So put this on top, then the Ponder, then the Force. We will not shuffle our library. So we've got Force Protection for something, probably pitching the Brainstorm. And then Emery can clear the other card if we needed to. A Chrome Mox. Not many turns that are fair start with a Chrome Mox. Shatter Seal Smashing is what they imprinted. So this looks to me to be the Epic Gamble. So we will be able to hopefully interfere with them unless they have an Overmaster. There's the Overmaster. So we can't really do anything about this. So they could just crack and spin the wheel this turn. And get rid of this nice hand that we had. A Galvanic Relay. That's far less threatening. Are they going to relay into the big wheel though? Because that's quite a good play. Defense Grid, not a big fan of that. Okay, looks like they didn't have the follow-up Echo Eons. Alright, does that change the way we want to play this game? I don't think so. So if we name blue with Painter here, we turn on their Mox Opal, their Chrome Mox to make blue mana as well. Which is an interesting little one. It does mean that our Force of Wills are better. We can cast an Emery this turn, or we can cast a Painter's Servant. I think I'd rather... I think I want to cast a Painter's Servant here. And just get on board. Because if they like cast wheels and stuff, and they don't win, at least we have the combo in hand. On board, sorry. Because they can't Echo Eons us off of the combo. Because we have both pieces. We still need one more mana source and a couple of turns. But let's see what our opponent has here. So they're just going to play out the defense grid, which is going to be awkward for us. There's the Mox Opal. This is an interesting one of what do I hit here. Because every time they get priority, they might put the defense grid on the stack. But can they make enough mana to make the defense grid? And the rest of their combo that they were planning on doing. If they have the defense grid here, then we don't really have much choice. If we counter this, then we can give the illusion that we have other spells, which I think is probably worth doing. We will add their Storm Count, that's the issue. So So I think we have to hit this now. And I think I'd rather keep the ponder than the brainstorm. Our hand is fine, we don't need to fix it. So that will make them think that we have another piece of interaction. Otherwise, we let it go, and then they just get to windmill into the sun and kill us. Also, it means if we get another turn, any interaction we do draw is going to be live. That's made our opponents stop and think a bit, which is nice. Okay, so they crack their LED to cast Bergie, which is, I think, the correct line here. You might as well use up your spells. So generating the mana, so they get to cast a draw 7 here if they want it, because the gamble will automatically put the Echo Vions into their graveyard. So we get to draw another 7 cards, which might involve counter spells, which is another reason why hitting the defense grid there is useful. So there's Echo Vions, and some blue mana, and keeping blue in their pool, which is interesting to me. I guess all their spells make red. So we do have a Force of Will. And then we can untap with Pyroblast as well. So if we get another turn, I think we are doing okay. We can also play out the Pithing Needle, naming Horn of Harrenfell, which is the backside of Bergie. Or Harrenfell, Horn of Bounty, that's the one. Which is one of their best draw engines in the deck, apart from the Echo, of course. Play the land. We're just passing the turn here. That's pretty good for us. We just need to survive one more turn with double interaction up. I don't hate this. We need a red source to make Pyroblast. So this is going to make us our Pyroblast mana. So let's just play that on now. Which means we get to cast a Ponder. So we probably want to thin our deck slightly to make sure we can hit. So does it matter what we get here? I don't think so. So this is going to Pyroblast. We probably just want to Pyroblast the Bergie right now. But let's Ponder first. An additional Pyroblast. Yes, I would very much like that. So we'll put this on top, then the LED, and the Pyroblast, and we will not shuffle. We'll draw the Pyroblast. So we have 3 artifacts, so Mox Opal is live. So I think we destroy this now, and then we play out this Pithing Needle, naming Horn of Harrenfell, Horn of Thingamajigs. Horn of Bounty, that's the one. How do I spell Harrenfell? Harnfell, that's it. Harnfell, Horn of Bounty. And then we have Pyroblast and Force of Will up with our win next turn. So that's surely got to be enough. Like, we could Pyroblast one of their permanents, but I think we need to hit a spell of theirs. Like, if they cast a Bergie, Lion's Eye Diamond is a pretty good one to hit here. I think we're going to let that resolve though, and we can always Pyroblast it now once it's in play, and that'll force the activation of it while they have loads of cards in hand. Okay, they're just conceding. Alrighty then. So, Grafdigger's Cave seems pretty decent against them. Tormod's Crypt less so, to be honest. These cards seem very good here, and the Colligan's Command seems good, and the Mana Maze seems good, and the Hydroblast seem good, and the Flusterstorm seems... So basically my whole sideboard here looks pretty decent, which means we're going to have to be trimming a load of stuff. So boarding in a load of blue spells, so I'm going to trim on stuff. The Goblin Welder is going to be able to mess with all their permanents. I don't think Nile Spellbomb is that good here. The Pithing Needle one, Horn of Harrenfell, is fine. I think just having all these spells that interact is going to be better. I think the Pyroblasts are going to be weaker here. They only have one real target, unless I have Painted Servant in play. So I think I can trim at least 2 of them. We don't want to lose too many blue cards. We're into this horrible situation again. So maybe we have to trim the rest of the Pyroblasts here. But then, what are we trimming for the rest of it? I guess we are bringing in blue cards, so maybe we can trim Baleful Strix. Or just cut Baleful Strix entirely. Go some more blue cards, and we just need to find 2 more things. So maybe we can get rid of one of these Mox Opals. And gives us one more thing to cut here. I don't think we're the explosive combo deck here. I think we're the control deck, so we can board like this. So how many blue cards we got? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So we've got a decent amount of blue cards there. And we've got the maximum amount of our combo pieces in, so we can win that way. And yeah, so we've got Force of Will, Hydroblast, Mana Maze. Sure. I don't think they're going to see Mana Maze coming, because whoever sees Mana Maze coming, right? Nice to get one of the spicier cards in the sideboard doing some work. And there it is. So we don't really have any interaction for our opponent's turn 1. Is that acceptable against the Epic Gamble? I don't know if it is. This would be acceptable on the play, but I don't know if it's acceptable on the draw. We do have 2 of our sideboard cards, but they are... The only thing would be... The only sort of turn 1 interaction we really have is the Force of Will. I don't know if we can just mulligan to Force of Will here. I think we keep this and hope they have a setup turn. And then we can untap into Flusterstorm. So, okay, a defense grid. Sure. And a Lion's Eye Diamond. So it didn't really matter what interaction we had here. Spinning the wheel. Well, it does give us our combo, I suppose, but they might just be able to kill us this turn. Okay, looks like they're done for this turn. We get to untap with more mana. So we could try and brainstorm here, but I don't think that's actually going to do us a lot of good. It's Volcanic Island. I think we play out the Welder, so if we do get another turn, our Welder can do a lot of stuff. And this casts the Hydroblast as well. I don't know if the Mishra's Bauble is something we actually need here. Like, we can crack it, but we can't do anything in the face of defense grid. I'd rather crack it going into our next turn, so we have more chances of hitting Mana Maze or something like that. Grim Monolith. Sure. So you got a lot of colourless mana, but they need that to go somewhere. Grim Monolith. Okay, so this feels like they might be trying to hardcast an Echo Vions. Another defense grid. Message received. I'm not casting spells on our opponent's turn, but we can welder things out. Another defense grid. Okay, we're definitely not casting spells on our opponent's turn. I see. A Galvanic Relay turn. So this could be pretty medium. We'll see. An Echo Vions that they have to cast from play. Effectively from hand. They can't put in the graveyard. An Overmaster. Okay, that's a pretty poor one here. I think we are doing alright now. Let's have a look at their hand. A Mox Opal on top. So that's going to give them another coloured source. So we don't really want to weld them in with that. Message received. Let's draw a couple of cards. Mana Maze. Okay, now we get to do the thing, I suppose. Let's see if this is any good. Cast Mana Maze. Blue. And this. And then once we cast a Painted Servant, it will be a deafening silence. Effectively. So we can weld out these defense grids, but that's not the game we want to play because we don't want them to have access to any more coloured mana sources. So they've got a Mox Opal and those cards in their exile. So there's a Mox Opal we know about. So do they have any way of making coloured mana here? So there's the Grim Monolith. An Overmaster. Problem is that uses a coloured mana to dig into their deck. And they can't cast a red spell now. So if I untap and play Painted Servant... Okay, so there's a defense grid. They changed the interface on online, so it automatically crosses them off now, which is nice. Okay, so there's another Overmaster. I think we are A-OK here. So we do need an additional mana source. So we could be greedy and try and find an additional mana source using a Brainstorm. But if we miss, that's pretty frustrating. I think it's worth doing here, right? Let's find a mana source. Any mana source. Yeah, sure. So this isn't going to be a Grindstone in-hand game or a Welder like that. So then we play out this artifact, I guess. That does play us into Pulverize, though. I think we play this out. So let's go and get Underground Sea. So I think we name red here. So our opponent can cast one spell next turn. And then they're dead on my turn. So this is a pretty nice place to be. The Mana Maze doing work. You absolutely love to see it in the year of 2022. Like, our opponent had a pretty bad draw. That's definitely helped us here. Like, their relay wasn't very good. And they've drawn 4 defense grids, which is not ever what you want. You only really ever need 1. That's what we got here. I'm pretty close to just beating them on damage here. Burning Wish. So they can't cast any more spells this turn. Void Snare. So Void Snare is a sorcery that they won't be able to cast because of Mana Maze. And they can't cast it in our turn because it's a sorcery. So we will tap this for mana. And then we get to win the match. Alright, so Mana Maze did some work there, but I think it's also important to note that our opponent, the fair out on their deck kind of hit a little bit there because they span the wheel and it didn't really go anywhere. So, oh sorry, they didn't spin the wheel, did they? They Galvanic Relayed and it didn't go anywhere. But yeah, so they tried to set up a reasonable Galvanic Relay with protection, and it just didn't pay off for them. So we definitely had the tools to make sure that we put the nail in the coffin, but I think part of that win was our opponent's deck hitting their fail rate a little bit. So let's go on to the final round, which is the 5th round. Yet again, I've won the die roll. What does our opening hand do here? We have a Brainstorm if we need it. We have our combo if we need it, but we can't cast it for a little while. We have this Goblin Well that doesn't do anything. We have a Brainstorm to try and fix it. So I think we keep. But the decision of what to play and when is very difficult with this hand. So we play out a blue source and we can Brainstorm in an emergency, which I think is probably what we need to do. Question is, what land do we play it off of? I think we play it off the Underground Sea. If they have a wasteland, it lets us know that our Baleful Strix needs to get shuffled away. Right, so it's our opponent's turn, and they played a Windswept Heath. So my initial thought is Windswept Heath equals Green White Depths, because I think that's the best Windswept Heath deck. But it could be one of these Fiend Artisan mid-rangey builds. This doesn't really give us any more information about what it is. But it's one of those 2 decks. Okay, so I have a Polluted Delta, so we can do a good Brainstorm this turn, which I like. So I have a Pyroblast, which would be nice soon. The Baleful Strix will block a 2020, which kind of makes me think I maybe want that. We have the Synod here. I think we get rid of one of our fetch lands. And the question is, what is the other card we eject from this hand? Like, the Welder will be useful if things go wrong and we need to rebuild, but a lot of their removal is going to be exile based because they're a white deck, so I don't think the Welder is going to do an awful lot here. So I'm going to go for this. And then we want to shuffle our library here. We don't need to shuffle it now though. So we're quite delayed on our Urza Saga, which is one of the problems I think this deck naturally runs into, where you have all these like coloured pip spells you want to cast, but then you also have this Urza Saga that you need for your combo. Actually, I think if we crack this now and hit the bauble, we can possibly hit a Force of Will. But it does expose us to Wasteland. But I think we have to go for it, right? Let's get Volcanic Island and see our opponent's hand in case we get Force of Will. A Bajuka Bog, sure. So I'm very glad I get rid of that Welder now. Okay, so an Emery, that's not going to be great in the face of their Bajuka Bog unless they snap it off now due to the way their mana develops in this game. So next time we can play Painted Servant, and okay, so this means they're playing Green White Depths. Thespian Stage. This could be a Green Sun Zenith for 1. So we can Painted Servant and Pyroblast this turn if we need to. So I think we go 1, 2, play Painted Servant, everything is blue. So we can snap off the Pyroblast now on the Thespian Stage, which is going to really slow them down. I quite like that. So we get rid of one of their resources as well as half of their combo. Yep, sure, they sack in response anyway, so it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter that I'm not destroying it. So we've got a couple more turns to get through, and then our Urza Saga pops. So we can deploy this next turn, which can block the 2020, although they are a deck that can give it protection and just sail through, which is a bit of an issue for us. Knight of the Reliquary, maybe? Knight of the Reliquary, sure. So this finds them their combo pieces. So we can make Urza Saga tokens, or we can make the Baleful Strix into Emery, but we know they have the thing to counter Emery. But I think we need to make this one. That's step one. It's very hard to play this and keep Pyroblast up, or the option of casting a Pyroblast up. So we have a Lion's Eye Diamond. A nice Fair Magic the Gathering card. So we can play out the Emery, or we can play out the second Saga in case they go and get a Wasteland to hit this Saga. Which is what I think is the correct play here. And then, do we play out the Lion's Eye Diamond now? That's a tricky one. Does it make a difference if we play it out now? I guess it means in a pinch, when something horrible happens, we can make a Saga token. So it gives us slightly more plays available to us. So I think that's the correct play. So they need to get a Wasteland this turn to stop the Urza Saga. If they have a Green Sun Zenith, they can just get a Collector Roof. And then we need to draw into a Pyroblast. What are they fetching here? Flagstones. So they're using the Flagstones trick so they can generate more mana with the Knight of the Reliquary here. So this could be a Green Sun Zenith turn, the next turn they combo us, which would be very bad for us. But we need to hit into. Yeah, we're probably not winning this game with damage. We need to. Okay, so there's the Wasteland that we were expecting. So that's bought them another turn. We might be able to rebuy that. Painted Servant. Sure. So. Some decisions here. If this plays around removal spells, I play this guy out. I guess I can play out like everything, right? So I can just play out this and this. Let's get an additional painter. Which will name Blue. And then we can play out this Emery. Unfortunately, we know what's in there. We know they've got the Paducah Fog. Now, if this milled over both grindstones, we'd be in a lot of trouble. Let me play out this. So our whole hand is face up here. If they don't have another Wasteland, then they die next turn. So I can play Paducah Bog and then maybe spin it up into something else. So this doesn't bring them in tapped, so they can play the Paducah Bog and then spin it. Okay. So not interested in the Paducah Bog. Message received. There's the Wasteland. Sure. Like, we could draw the Grindstone. That's fine. So now they'll play the Paducah Bog. Yep. And then we lose everything that way. Just in case we have a Crucible or something. Yep. It's a good bit of play there. What we got here? Minsk and Boo. So this is going to kill us in not very many turns. So if we get the opportunity to block, we block with the Baleful Strix and we can bring it back with the Emery and dig into our deck. Okay. Not sure that's even the correct play there. Like, it does deal us 3 damage. But it means we get to rebuy and draw another card into a Grindstone perhaps. Well, that's a nice one, isn't it? Okay, so we want blue mana, black mana, cast. We draw a card. And there's a Saga. Sure. So play this out. And then we have to play this on Minsk and Boo, I think, because that's the scariest thing on the board. Minsk and Boo, Timeless Hero. So, again, they can keep getting Wastelands, which is awkward for us. But what we can do here is we can sacrifice the Lion's Eye Diamond so we have something to weld. So we can just keep welding the Baleful Strix in and out. Yeah. So because of Yavimaya, they can sack anything to the Knight of the Reliquary. So I assume this is getting another Wasteland. I think these decks usually run 3. Okay, the Thespian stage. Okay, so now they've pivoted to try and go in for the combo. Sure. So they're just going for it and making the 2020. So do we need to activate the Lion's Eye Diamond this turn? If we activate the Lion's Eye Diamond, put it in the graveyard, we can then welder the Strix and the Lion's Eye Diamond, and then we can untap and replay it. I think that's correct. They do have Graveyard Hate in their deck, but they've already shown us the Paducah Bog, so I'm okay to do this play. We are not using that mana. So this is going to just have protection, so we need something here. Yep, so that goes up. I think the most mana efficient way that we can play this turn is if we swap a Painted Servant out for a Baleful Strix. So this needs to draw us a Grindstone. That is not a Grindstone. Is there another way that we can get an artifact back? I don't think there is. Like, we could Pith and Needle to try and stop these getting stuff, but there's two of them, so we can't stop that. And it just means the Boo can throw at us. So we make a token, that doesn't achieve anything. We can play out the Painted Servant. In blue, we can play out a land, which lets us activate this. But I think we are dead if they have... Well, they're just going to go get their Sugary Step, and there's nothing we can do about that. Right. I guess the hope is they're really new to the deck and don't know that line, but I suspect we are just dead this time. And there's the Sugary Step, so the guy is unblockable. Concede. Alright, so we need to have a little think here. Killing creatures is something I want to do. Sugary Step is creature you control, I believe. The Hydroblast deals with Minsk and Boost, so we like Hydroblast. Pyroblasts seem bad in this matchup. Colligan's Command can kill creatures and maybe mess with something. I don't think the Maddening Hex is what we want. The Surgical Extraction I don't hate as a way of, if I can smash one of their things down and then surgically extract it. So this is a maybe. This guy's a flyer blocker, so that seems good to me. The Nile Spellbomb in case of Graveyard Hate is fine. In case of what do you call it? Life and Loam type stuff. I think we can probably trim on a Mox Opal. We don't want to have cards that are bad against Collector Roof, since that's one of the threats we're going to have to kill. So then we got these choices. We've got two cards we need to trim. Like with Paducah Bog, I don't really like our opponent having us having things that are no good with Paducah Bog. And the Welder takes quite a lot of work to get going on its own, to be honest. So I'm not convinced this is the best spot for Welder deck or matchup wise right now. So we're going to submit like this. Right, so we're on the play. We have an answer for Minsk and Boo, and we have a way of killing Collector Roof. And we have these Sagas, which are going to be medium. So I think the biggest issue I have actually with this hand is I can't cast Colligan's Command. So the mana base is very greedy here. Is this keepable? I think like the Lion's Eye Diamond's pretty blank here as well right now. So I think we just mulligan this one for hands that have more spells we can cast. Like this, for example. So we'll keep this. We have half of our combo here. And we have the Pith and Needle. Yeah, I think this is fine. I think we lead out with this. We don't need to Pithing Needle straight away. We can see how their hand develops a little bit. An Elvish Reclaimer, sure. Okay, so we've drawn a second Abrade, which means we're going to kill their Elvish Reclaimer. We get an Underground Sea here. That lets us cast Colligan's Command if we draw it. So red, blue. So we just need to play a little control-y game for a bit until we can draw the rest of our combo. Like, we could Pithing Needle that instead. But I think a preemptive Pithing Needle on Minsk and Boo could be good. But I think the Hydroblast is most likely to counter the Minsk and Boo. That's the way you set up. There's going to be a third mana source for Knight, a Green Sun Zenith for 1. So this could be a Dryad Arbor. Or it could be another Reclaimer. Sure. Right, so this gives us our combo in a few turns. Crop rotation straight away. Interesting. So trying to do it so that we can't get mana off of this. I'm trying to Wasteland straight away. Yeah, so then the Wasteland hits this, which is awkward for us. So now we kind of need to hold our Hydroblast up for Minsk and Boo now, which means we probably need to Pithing Needle the Elvish Reclaimer here. But it is just going to start attacking us. Also means this is too big to abrade as well. So yeah, so if they try and play a Minsk and Boo on 4, then at least we have that covered. And we've only got 2 cards in hand, so maybe we can get over the hump here and start making inroads to winning the game. Ramanap Excavator. We can't counter this, and it's going to win the game for them. Because our mana base is incredibly greedy. Sure. So normally they'd have to Green Sun Zenith for this card. So we need to draw a mana source so that we can hit them. Hit the creature. We just drew a Ponder, so they're just going to Wasteland us next turn, and then we're basically out of the game here. So we're taking 5 over 3 turns. So we are just pretty stone cold dead here. Yep. Can't argue with that. I do love a nice Wasteland deck, so I can't complain too much. Collector Roof. So all of our permanents in our deck basically are... Like all our lands get hit by Wasteland, and all our artifact lands won't produce mana. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they're 1 damage shy. So we'll play out this useless card. And then they're just going to kill us here. We can skip this one up. Okay, so that's the end of that league, and we went 2-3. So not a great result. Let's take a look at the deck. Okay, so my initial thoughts on this deck is that it's incredibly greedy. Which, when it works, is going to be great. Like, when we had that game, we just had like all the value and all the stuff going on. It was great. But I think there's going to be a number of games that are lost due to, like, if you draw a mountain as one of your starting lands and you have a Baleful Strix, or the amount of times that I had Urza Saga so I couldn't cast my spells, but I needed the Saga to do the other things. I think 3 colors and Urza Saga is possibly pushing it a little bit. I did think that the Welder in this deck isn't that good. Like, you need the Emery to get the Welder online, really, because you don't have loads of artifacts, really. You haven't got that many hits. And you don't have things like Fable the Mirror Breaker or whatever, which put stuff in your graveyard or whatever. And you don't have Lotus Petals for a free thing to keep cycling around if you need to. So I think Emery, and if you have an Emery to make your Welder better, your Emery kind of does the same thing anyway. So I don't necessarily know that the Goblin Welder is essential here. Obviously, Pyroblasts are very good as a card, but it feels like you're basically playing red in this deck for Pyroblast and maybe some sideboard cards. Because the Welder is a little bit of a win more card at times. Like, if your opponent has got artifacts that you can weld in and out, I think it's great. But apart from that, it just didn't feel like a card I wanted to see that much in this deck. Baleful Strix I actually really like as a card, and I think this deck is getting it back with Emerys and stuff and just having this constant chain of blocker seems very strong. It's a blue card, so it pitches the Force of Will, which is nice. And the issue I have with it is the mana constraints trying to cast it. The Force of Will is a bit shy on blue cards, but obviously Painter can sort of tweak that a little bit. So if I was going to continue playing a Grixis painter deck, I would at least cut one of the welders and have a fourth Emery, because I think the Emery is just better than the welder most of the time. And the mana base is awkward. Like, you have these lands which only tap for one colour when you're trying to dip between all these different pips here. Like, you're basically just splashing black for these two cards. So this deck could very easily be, I don't know, it's weird, this deck. It's kind of like a blue deck that's kind of splashing a little bit for these red cards and then splashing a little bit for this black card. And I don't know if the splash is entirely justified for either, because it's kind of stretched quite thin. Like, when it comes together and works, like we saw in one of the rounds, it looks very good. But I think there's going to be a number of games that are lost down to sort of awkward mana base, not being able to cast things and so on and so forth. Like, you could trim a couple of welders, have another Emery, have another Ponder. That would be something I'd be in the market for, perhaps. I'm trying to think how else you could trim this. Like, you kind of need the Urza Saga, but then because you're like a Ponder deck and you have these cards as well, it's sometimes a bit difficult to actually invest your mana in the Saga. It's just a disappearing land that is a tutor, which is fine, but I think that's a lot lower on the power level of what Urza Saga can do in general. And I think I understand why we have these Seat of the Synods for the purposes of Welder and Emery. But I think having a lot of lands that don't cast your spells. So, like, let's have a look. So, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lands in our deck that don't cast our red spells. And then we have 5 cards here that don't cast Baleful Strix either pip. And also, if you have multiples of these lands, then you can't cast Baleful Strix straight away either. So I think there's a little bit of push and pull in the directions the deck's trying to go. As for the sideboard, I really had a good time playing Mana Maze. It made me smile to play this card that I haven't thought about for a very long time. So that was nice. Obviously, Hydroblasts, quite often we're just swapping for Pyroblasts. And that's fine. There's even an argument for leaning more into the blue here and just running more Hydroblast main instead of Pyroblasts. I know Pyroblasts are generally better, but Hydroblasts are fine, and they are blue cards for Force of Will. So that's something to think about, perhaps. The Colligan's Command felt a bit tricky on the mana because you're kind of a blue deck splashing these two colours, so your Badlands is your go-to land to get the splashes, whereas you need like an Underground Sea and a Badlands to then get your Baleful Strix up and running. So I'm not entirely sure about that. Like, my thoughts on this is that if I was building something like this, the idea of a painter deck with Baleful Strix is something I like. I like being able to rebuy Baleful Strixes. What I would consider personally for me would be either playing a blue-black deck or a blue-red deck. I think having a 3-color as a Saga deck is difficult, especially when the cards you're trying to play are, double pip cards like that. But I'd be interested in trying to play a blue-black painter deck with Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas, which is like my favourite Planeswalker. So not a surprise I'm trying to recommend it to people. But I think maybe that would give a slightly more secure mana base, which would certainly help, I think. Because like some of the games I lost definitely felt like it was mana or clunky hands. There's also not a lot of removal available in the entire 75. So you're relying on Pyroblasts, and then you're also relying on like a Braids or Hydroblast. But sometimes those just aren't going to get the job done. Whereas like the red painter deck has Furies, and the white painter deck has Swords to Plowshares. So it feels like just having a cheap way of removing creatures when you're under the gun a bit, rather than having to try and establish this and then Pyroblast it away would make sense. Any other thoughts on this deck? Like, you could also just play like a blue-red deck, so get rid of the Baleful Strix and lean more into like a blue-red package. So you're just kind of doing the so you're trying to make more use of Welder, so you can have Lotus Petals and things. Like Lotus Petals would actually help smooth out the mana in this deck as well, and make your Welder better. So if you wanted to stay Grixis and you wanted to put some Lotus Petals in the deck, you could get your Lotus Petal and Baleful Strix off of it a lot more easily, and then you can start welding it because you'll have a card in the bin. So you can then start just using the Baleful Strix as a draw engine between this Lotus Petal. So you get to draw an extra card every couple of turns from it. So that's another thought. And also you can fix your mana on the way if you need to, if you're doing that. And hold up Pyroblast and stuff, or get a surprise Lotus Petal in and mess with your opponent's maths around things and play around days more easily. So I think Lotus Petal might be somewhere to go with this deck as well. But again, I don't know where to fit it in because this deck is trying to squish so many things into it. Like, you could easily cut one Mox Opal, but I don't think having one Lotus Petal is enough. You're probably going to need more. I understand why the Lion's Eye Diamond is here, but I don't know if having the sort of really busted turns where you can play Welder on one and then turn two you can kind of do it all. I don't know if that's necessary for what this deck's trying to do as like a Brainstorm Pondery type thing. But I could be wrong. Again, I'm not sure. This is the first time I played this deck and it's my first league with it, so I could be a little bit off base and have some more information if I've got more reps in with the deck. But those are my instincts. It has made me want to build a blue-black Tezzeret Painter deck, but I'll just have to add it to my massive queue of Tezzeret decks that I've got lined up that I want to try and play at some point. Other than that, I think that's about it, really. I think the deck has a lot of potential and stuff in it, but I think the level of greed in it means that you're going to lose games based on being too greedy. Like, you're probably going to win games on that greed as well, but I think the games you lose are going to be more than the games that you win off of it. All right, that's it for day 4 of Painter Week. Tomorrow I'm going to be doing a really spicy mono black Painter deck list, which I hope you'll all enjoy. And to make sure that you don't miss it, please subscribe to my channel, and then you will know when it's gone live and you won't have to worry about missing it, and you get to help me out. So it's a win-win for everyone. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.